old oh, now we're recording again. I was gonna say
Yeah, we're live.
my voice. Yeah, okay. My voice acts like the old. What was the old thing you would do in the payphone? They had like this device, and it would play these certain
Oh,
tones, and you would get a free call or whatever.
yeah, Captain
Yeah, so
Crunch.
yeah, yeah, something to do with Captain Crunch. So yeah, my voice has a similar effect. It degrades data integrity off the
Yeah,
wire in the ether.
yep.
So so um, I'm
Okay,
interested
so
to know
you had
about
a.
your. Yeah, I had some questions. Uh-oh, we may still
Okay,
have a delay again here. Yeah,
yeah, I can't
so
tell, but
that's okay
yeah,
because
and then
I'm just
maybe
gonna
we'll come
ask you
back.
some questions and then you can
Yep,
blab on and on and on, and then
respond.
it won't matter about the delay.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm interested to know about your childhood.
Oh.
Oh, how about parts of your childhood?
Oh, you mean the
Oh,
you mean the yeah, you mean that the horrible thing that I also simultaneously desperately need to recapture in the
yes. So isn't this mysterious?
yeah, no, no, that was kind of a joke. I don't think I had a horrible childhood. I had a bit of a weird one.
Okay.
I had a bit of a weird one, I think. Or maybe I'm just a bit of a weird
You've
dude.
still got a weird one.
Yeah, the extent.
Yes. So
You mean the childhood that has extended into my early 40s. It still is a weird childhood
sure.
that I'm in right now.
It, and moment to moment, you are pining for the childhood
Mm,
of yestersecond.
right. So
Uh,
I wouldn't say that, you know, I certainly wouldn't say that I'm pining I pine much for childhood in general. I pine for that particular
mhm.
way of feeling that I felt in childhood when I saw certain movies and thought about you know, read books and you know, lay in my bed imagining things, you know. So yeah,
Okay.
I called it the childhood sense of wonder. You know, I don't know how that ties in more broadly with my childhood in general. You know, as you know, I was brought up in a somewhat fundamentalist Christian, Protestant Christian home. Um, uh, but my father turned out to be gay, so that was fun. That's a fun mix, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, what's that?
A classic mix. Yes.
Yes, yeah. You know, talk about your Reese's peanut butter
Yes, that's
cup.
right. You got your homosexuality in my fundamentalism.
Yes. Yep. Um, so actually, so
Turns
that's
out
a
to be
big.
delicious.
Yep. Yep. Deliciously confusing for
Deliciously
everyone.
confusing for everyone
Yep.
involved. Okay, so you can bring it apply, but tell me about this. So describe for me one of these one of these summer days of your childhood where you're laying in your bed
Yeah.
and reading a book, and what is
Yep.
happening?
Yeah. What is happening? Oh, well, it's a good question. You know, the thing that instantly jumped to mind there is that I think I often put myself into these stories, into these situations, and I often so most of what I read or was interested in involved magic or speculative science of some kind. So usually the universes were a little bit different than mine, than the real one. like so like I can think about a bunch of the young adult fiction that and some of it is probably pretty obscure, maybe even low quality. I mean, a lot of these things I haven't gone back to and hardly even remember. But like there was this whole series about these kids that had this chemistry set, and they would get themselves. It was more like a magical chemistry set. Like I remember in one, they coated the inside of a beaker with some substance that turned it into sort of like a crystal ball. It sort of became this thing that they could do remote viewing, sort of like, so they were able to see things. I don't know. There was like these Danny Dunn books where they were, I don't, they made a robot. That's a similar thing, remote viewing. They made like this little this little mosquito, this little robotic mosquito that they could fly around with goggles on, and they could see what it was seeing, so they could, they were spying on people. But there was like a time travel one, a Danny Dunn time travel book, So there were a number of series of books where they sort of tackled different things. Oh, here's a story about time travel. Oh, here's a story about seeing into the past. Or remote viewing, seeing through walls. Or here's a story about being able to teleport. Um,
Yeah. So
and so
so
that
tell me
stuff
about.
it awakened my imagination.
Okay.
But yeah, I always was like, I always put myself into these. I mean, it was always like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be able to teleport, or I would think about, oh, what would I do if I were faced? I guess maybe this is fiction in general for some people. I don't know. But what would I do if I were faced with the problems that they were faced with, or what would I do if I had that magical power or that scientific power? They were usually pretty magical, really. Um, um, Yeah, maybe you're not. Maybe I always psychoanalyze a lot. Like I don't know if that means I was, looking for ways of controlling my own confusing world, or looking for, wishing that I had the power to do whatever it is, teleport or read minds. I was always really into reading minds. I think that's always like, that's the power that I would. That's the superpower I would choose, even though I think it would destroy my life. I think
Yeah.
that would be
I
a
think I think
horrible superpower to
I
have.
think it would be horrible too.
And
I think that would be like the last one I would choose.
yeah, but that is weird. Isn't that weird? I still, right now, I would say that's the one I would choose, because I really because people are so mysterious to me, and to be able to
They
understand,
are,
to be
and
able
I would
to
like to keep it
to
that
know.
way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a loose tooth. I can't help playing with it. I want to know what's going on in other people's heads,
Well, I'm
even though
fairly
it might
confident
really
won't
mess
start
me up.
reading minds anytime soon. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you get to preserve the mystery. To me, I think that's a good thing. So,
yeah, yeah.
okay. So
You know,
this insertion of yourself, if perhaps not into the story, at least into the you could interject yourself into the setting
yeah,
or the situations
yeah.
in
Which
an
is,
imaginative exploration, which is similar to role playing.
yeah,
And
right. It's pretty game-like, that way of looking
yeah,
at
so
things.
I agree. I agree because I said it. Tell me
Yep.
though, what is preventing you from doing that now, if indeed you are prevented, if you can put your finger on it?
Yeah. Um, I'm worried that the things that I think about it are not really correct. It's another example of this after the fact rationalization. Like, the feelings come first, or the fact comes first, and it's some visceral thing. So I might just be like, again, psychoanalyzing. Um, I mean, it feels like, this, becoming older, um, has deadened a certain thing. That's the way it feels. It's like I've been affected by real life. I've had, you know good experiences and bad experiences, but I'm probably more disturbed by life, or more, life feels more difficult to me now than it seemed to me back then. Or again, maybe it was really difficult back then, and that those were kinds of an escape. I'm not sure. I don't know how to think
So
about
I
that.
I don't feel like yeah, I don't feel like I was ever really. I hear a lot of people describing sort of their childhood, reading or movie watching or game playing as escapism, and I never really felt that
Yeah,
way about my own experience.
yeah,
Um, I mean, maybe my childhood was too cushy,
yeah.
uh,
Well,
is what that means. I'm not sure,
I don't know about that.
but
I
anyway.
don't know if I would even. So that never comes to my mind either. Like I don't tend to think that art has ever really been escapist for me in that sense. Um,
Mm,
I more think. I mean, I more think it's the opposite of escapist. It's more like, I think even back then I was grappling with problems, or thinking about grappling with life and viewing it through a lens. That's a thing that games do still do for me. I'm viewing it, through a lens. Well, maybe there is some escapism if you think like, um, if I'm like struggling in life when I'm a kid, say, and I'm thinking, oh, boy, it would really help me out to solve this real life problem I'm having if I could read minds, if I had this sort of magical
mm,
power. But I still don't even view that exactly as escapism, because I know that I can't read minds, even as a kid, Um, but I'm sort of like playing with these problems. I'm imagining, yeah, what if I could? How would I use that to solve these problems? And would it really solve these problems, or would it just create more problems? But I think that is a process of. It doesn't feel exactly like I'm escaping there. It feels like I actually am thinking about real life, maybe in a hypothetical way. So I've always been into hypotheticals, as
sure,
you know.
sure.
Um,
So I'm interested in
but
discussing. Hang on, I want to discuss one movie in particular,
okay,
uh, the first Indiana Jones film.
yeah,
Okay.
it's probably my favorite.
It's one
Uh,
of my favorites as well, and I can identify one of the reasons, which I realized this evening. I think I've realized it before too, but it was
okay,
reemphasized again this evening. Earlier this evening, Tammy and I watched the first Percy Jackson movie,
I don't
which
I
was
don't think I
fine.
know what that is. I don't think I know what that is.
First, okay, so we can substitute Harry Potter, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just as valid. Okay.
Okay.
So the first Indiana Jones film, notably, though we were maybe middle schoolers, I can't remember exactly when we saw it. It had no children in it,
Hmm.
and that was actually, I strongly believe that was one of the reasons that I really, really liked it. Reason number two was that although there were fantastic elements, there was nothing that he didn't have any superpowers. Indiana Jones was kind of
Yeah.
like Batman in a way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And so
of course, we can quibble about that, right?
you can
But
feel
but
free.
actually, even I agree with you in general, though. Like, I mean, even the action movie physics and things like that, like they've gotten so much worse. For me, worse. Like that's a thing I particularly don't
Yes.
like. Um,
Yeah.
and so, relatively
So
speaking, it's a pretty believable action movie in that sense. Of course, it's
in
still,
that sense, yeah,
yeah.
it's got all these supernatural elements as
Well,
well,
yeah.
which
Even aside from that, I'm thinking just like how much beating can a human take? Like how many
yeah,
times
yeah,
can a
yeah.
person get
That's true.
punched and things like that. Even there, it's probably still unrealistic there, but not nearly as
It
much as.
probably is, but he also you see him getting whooped,
And you see him getting
right?
really tired, like that scene where he's
Really
fighting.
tired. Yes, when he fights
Yeah,
the big German guy.
that's
Yes,
that's one of the
exactly. And he's
great
like,
things. Yeah,
God, yes,
yeah. And if you think
yeah,
about, he's been,
absolutely.
he's been up all night, in the tomb of whatever it is, the Well of Souls or whatever that
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
And
great.
he
It's
really
great.
does not want to fight that guy.
Nope.
It
Yeah.
is. And and he wears glasses. Something as simple as that. So
Yeah.
yes, he was so human to me and adult, which
Hmm.
was really important. So, and although you've got these supernatural elements going on, I maybe felt like I could do something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was just not the case with so many other
Yep.
things.
Yep. Yeah. And
Uh,
and so, and of course, so in that movie, um, uh, doing something like that for me certainly entailed. I mean, or is certainly part of the attraction was the things he was doing, like exploring, right? Exploring tombs, finding treasures, cleverly
solving
figuring out.
puzzles.
Yep, yep, solving
Yep.
puzzles, figuring out traps and whatnot. Um, and yep, I loved that back then, and I still do love that. And that is, so that's one of the perennial questions we're asking here, is like, do I not love it as I mean, do I not love it as much, or does it not have the ability to affect me as much as it did back then, and why would that be the case? And it feels like it's dampened. Yeah, it feels like it's harder now to get over that hurdle, whatever the hurdle is, or the but yeah, that's what's
Right.
going on. I
So
mean,
possibly.
it did make me feel like, oh, this is a thing that people could do, somebody could do in real life, and I put myself into that situation. Yeah.
So possibly, part of this could be just that you experienced it that first time. It was fresh, right? And
Yeah.
so with all of these books too, all of these ideas, time travel or a far seeing, and all of these things, the first few times, but now you've
Yeah.
experienced all of that. When was the last time that you experienced something that you thought, "Wow, this is just a really new set of ideas"?
Mm.
You kind of mentioned that with FTL. You said that they had really made a new feeling game.
Well, I I think I was probably talking more about mechanics. I was probably.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, that's still like you get a feeling of, hey, something new. Like when you're young, everything's new.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
To
I
to
guess
kids
what I'm.
nowadays, or I would say to kids in Harry
Yeah.
Potter. Everything in
I
Harry
know.
Potter has been done
I
before in
know.
different ways, but to them, it's brand new, right? Which is important. It's
Yeah.
still important.
Yeah.
So
Actually, yeah.
that could be part of what's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting. Another interesting example there is The Matrix, which so many people lost their shit over at the time, right? But I had been reading Philip K. Dick for years and years, and
Yeah.
right, and so yeah, I had such a bad attitude about and I could see it. I could see that I was like, man, I got to relax because this is so new to a bunch of people, and it would be really cool if it was new. But then, like, I couldn't see past all the stupid stuff in it, that where I was like, oh, this could have been so much better, if they didn't, like,
Mm.
whatever, all the illogic, yeah. So, like, that's a great example of one that didn't work for me at all. Like The Matrix did, and so yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, I remember feeling a little bit of sadness about that, even, of going, yeah, here's the thing I lost, uh, and maybe it doesn't make much sense to feel so bad about that. It is like newness. Yeah, stuff wears off. So maybe it's more of a complaint. Well, maybe there's this feeling that you use up, like there's only so much newness in the world or something like that. You know, like um, because I could say, well, the Matrix didn't do it for me, so I just need to keep finding stories and games and movies that do something that's genuinely new to me. So that's what you're asking about. Um,
Yeah, partly.
but it just feels like that happens less and less because
Well, it would,
of
right?
my, yeah, exactly, because I've experienced more and more. Uh,
Mm.
um, so that might be some of the explanation, sure. So what's your, I mean, where do I go from there? Say that's a lot of the explanation. Um, is there a solution to that problem? Uh,
So perhaps
mm,
the perhaps part of that would be to go less and less mainstream, right? To look
yeah,
further afield, in more
yeah,
and more indie. But I haven't had very good success with that. I don't think.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean, I enjoy, in general, I like indie stuff. I like indie film and I like indie games quite a
yep,
bit.
yep.
Um,
I
but
I do in principle.
right. Well, I do even in practice, but it's not necessary. This is ironic because, well, I don't know if it's ironic, but indies seem to think that they're all about newness and innovation and all that stuff, and I don't really. That's not my experience. Like the things that I like about indies, it isn't necessary. Like they don't as often give me this feeling of newness. Not in this context anyway. Like it's more like I don't know. It's almost more like surfacey newness or something like that. Different, like in film, it might be like different, ways of framing, different styles, different like framing shots, and using music and the way I don't know, all sorts of cinematography stuff, which I also
Yeah,
like, but it doesn't give me this. It doesn't seem all that related to the feelings, the Indiana Jones kind of feelings, this like that I really get excited about.
yeah.
Um, like
Well,
like you and I watched Upstream Color,
yeah.
a movie that I really liked, but and it, stylistically, but I wouldn't say it gave me a whole lot of that childhood sense of wonder. I liked it in more of a, I don't know, more of an adult way or something, or more of I don't know.
That's what I was asking about last week, was whether you could find uh, uh, rather than strictly trying to,
Yeah,
or specifically trying to recapture sort of childhood feelings, are to embrace your adulthood, um,
yeah.
and find adult things to enjoy. But I think you do that anyway.
I think that's
I
an
think there are
example.
people in this,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there are people in this world that resist that kind of thing, that
It, it,
resist sort of more adult
oh, okay.
pleasures or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're one of them.
Okay. Yeah. I think I do kind of see them as separate things, and yeah, I don't feel it. What I'm sure they're connected in some ways, but yeah, so I wouldn't feel as much. I don't feel the sense of loss about those more adult pleasures because those are actually easier to find. But um, I guess what I would say, I guess there still is a thing deep down, though. If I had to choose between the two, I choose the childhood sense of wonder. It's more
Why?
visceral. I don't know.
More visceral. You mean
Yeah,
the desire for it is more visceral, or the actual
the
feeling
actual feeling of it,
is more visceral?
or something, or more powerful, or something. But maybe it's in a shallow way. It's sort of like, nostalgia is a very, for me, sort of visceral or powerful thing. But maybe you could view nostalgia as shallow, as a relatively shallow thing. Like, um, so yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just. maybe I should not care so much about it or something. Uh,
You just go ahead and care about whatever
yeah.
you feel like
All
caring
right.
about.
Well, yeah, unless it makes me too unhappy to care about it
Well,
because I can't get it anymore. But okay.
some people are happy being unhappy, or they like
No,
it, or something.
no. I mean, I've joked about that about me in the past, but no, I don't. I think I really don't want to. I want to be happy.
All right, so what's going to make you happy?
I don't know. Yeah. Oof, good question. But let me. I do want to analyze a little bit more. So I have said uh, that computer games give me these feelings more strongly than board games do over our arching. Uh, and I mean, I can look back even in I mean, so this feeling I'm talking about is definitely not dead. It's not completely gone. And I can name, so Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. That's a game that you and I have both liked, right? So
Yeah,
that gives me
excellent.
some. One of the reasons why I like it is they did capture some of the Indiana Jonesy. I mean, it comes from Tomb Raider, which very clearly comes from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
Um, I liked that. I liked some of the first Tomb Raider because it gave me some of those feelings. But to me, Sands of Time is one of the pinnacles of that. I mean, I like that more than any Tomb Raider game. I'm pretty sure.
Hmm.
But there's so I don't know if you have even played these or like these. It's a little bit cliche, but Eco and Shadow of the Colossus both totally did something for me in this regard. Um,
Yeah, I have played both. I played Shadow of the Colossus all the way through,
okay.
and Eco I got stuck in a
That's
spot.
right.
I
I
think we
remember.
talked
I
about it
remember
before,
talking. Yeah. Um, right.
and
Uh,
and I never actually owned Eco, so
yeah.
I returned it to the
Yep.
rightful owner and
Yep.
didn't go back. But yeah, I
Uh
understand
huh.
what you're saying.
Yeah, and then a more cerebrally, Braid and Portal. That first Portal game, especially, that did something for me for sure.
That did not, although I think
Yeah.
it's interesting, and I enjoyed playing some of it two player,
Yep.
but it didn't hit me in the same way it did most people, or
Yeah.
a
Okay.
lot of people.
Yep. Which one though? Portal, you're saying? Portal. Not
Portal.
Braid. Braid didn't do much for you. I mean, you played some of Braid, but not all of it. I gather.
I played the
Yeah.
demo of Braid, but I never
Yeah.
actually uh,
Yeah.
bought it. So both
So,
of those.
so part of my point, and then like I said, FTL, uh, and some other. I mean, so that's within the year or within the last 2 years. So I can over the last decade or starting from 2000, whatever, I can certainly find a number of video games that have um, provided me with some of this feeling I'm talking about, which is a reason why I still really like video games. One of the reasons. And then it's like, yeah, does it? It just feels like less. It feels like a trickle rather than a flood somehow. Um,
Yeah.
and I have to think that's because of me, not necessarily because of what's going on in the outside world. Because I'm so much more familiar, it seems like it's harder to give me that feeling these days. I mean, I could sit around and rail about the AAA game industry and how shitty it is and everything, but that's
Blah
boring.
blah blah. Yeah.
Boring. Uh, so I don't know. So what else?
Yeah, so I
Um,
want to know why then are you able to find that in recent examples of games, but not in recent examples of movies, you've specifically stated. And then you
hmm,
haven't said one way or the other on recent examples of books.
yep. Um, I think I gradually underwent a shift over many years towards games. Like so, like I said, I think even way back when I was a kid, in my mind, I had a very game-like approach to something like Indiana Jones, right? It's almost, I mean, it wasn't nearly this overt, but it's almost like I watched something like that, and of course, I was enthralled with the story and everything else, you know, the cinematography and whatnot. But I'm also sort of creating rules in my head of like, okay, this is how this world works, and then I'm putting myself inside of it and saying, yeah, what you know, what I'm essentially making my own story, you know, like, and people did this with Star Wars, of course, and Star Wars is another big one for me, where people made their own stories in Star Wars. You know, of course, I don't know what fan fiction was like back in the '70s, but even when you're just with action figures playing, you know, you're making up your own stories. So, and you sort of, it's that's you creating some rules about how this game works, even if they're just implicit. You know, you've created rules about how this universe works, and you're sort of working within those rules to play. It's not a game necessarily, but so I don't have a good answer. I'm just thrashing around here. Yeah, because something definitely changed gradually where it became more and more important to me to actually be able to interact with those worlds. Like games got more and more interesting to me. Like so, playing Sands of Time became more interesting to me than watching another movie about Indiana Jones. Like I wanted to be in there solving those puzzles and exploring those tombs and stuff like that. Um, Even though you certainly do, there are other aspects that you lose. There are other aspects of Raiders of the Lost Ark that no video game has captured. You know, I don't think any video game character is as good as Indiana Jones is in that
No, no.
in that one movie. Nope. Um, so yeah.
So what's going on with recent films? Why are they failing for you on this level? And what about recent books?
I hardly read at all nowadays.
Me
Uh,
too. Although
but
I've almost never read.
you're right. That's
In
like a
my childhood.
that's like a lifetime thing for you.
Yeah.
So I mean, you may have just always been more in a similar mode than I'm in, that I ended up in, which is to care, you know. Well, no, but you still like I mean, I was going to call it passive. I don't mean that pejoratively, but passive entertainment like
Just
movies.
as a, yeah,
Yeah,
opposed to yeah, what we would normally think of as interactive. Sure.
yeah. Um, so I don't know. I don't know. Books. It might be really mundane stuff. Like books are more work, you know, in some
Yeah.
ways.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and um, yeah, I
Well,
mean,
so that might be my answer, even going back. So reading was never effortless for me.
yeah.
I read just fine. I don't have any problems reading or any learning
Hmm.
disabilities that I know of
Yep.
or anything like that. Like for Tammy, oh my God, she'll go through an entire novel in
Yep.
a matter of hours, and oh my, that would take me
Yeah.
days or weeks to actually read that.
Yep.
So it's that is probably why I never really became a reader, and then that feeds into it, right? If you don't read very often, you don't get that fast at it, and
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
understand that. I think there could be some new types of things. I don't know, like something that comes to mind. It's kind of funny for me to talk about books because I don't know anything about books, but uh, within the last 10 years or so, like something that comes to mind, like House of Leaves. Do you know House of Leaves?
No, I don't refresh my
So if
memory
you get a
if
hankering
I,
for a book, well, it's so again, I've never read it, but the book is interesting to me nonetheless. It's a book that has kind of layers, but um, it's partly about this. Maybe we should just look it up on Wikipedia or something like
yeah.
that. Um, but the layout is actually of interest.
Okay.
So it stretches certain sentences across multiple pages, um,
Mm.
and partly it's partly about this house where they discover that the house is either growing or it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Um,
Okay.
and there are a couple of layers to the story. So see, I just ruined it for you,
No,
and I
that's all
think there's
right.
much more to it.
Yeah.
But I think there are maybe books like this that would have like, oh, there's kind of new ideas in there,
Yeah.
ideas that are new to me or something like that. Um, but so tell me about movies, recent movies.
Yeah.
Why are they failing for
What
you?
is going on there? They I feel like that's I there I feel sort of more cynical somehow, where um, I um, I've become pretty sensitive to formula in a way that maybe doesn't bother me in as much in games, especially game mechanics. Actually, still does bother me somewhat when I see what I view as too much derivative game mechanical stuff, whatever. But there's something about movies in particular um, that they drive me crazy sort of more often. Like I
You didn't have far to go.
That's right. Yep. Uh, there there's some I don't know. Even in movies that I like, that I enjoy. They just seem very formulaic. Again, we're kind of getting into this another boring conversation about how shitty Hollywood is, just like how shitty AAA console games are or something. But so the stuff that isn't
Sure,
formulaic,
I think there's another
go ahead.
I think there's possibly another interesting point to be made here, though.
Mm.
And I think, for me, I feel so. Although I never really think of art in escapist terms, I do talk about it in terms of its transportive power, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and I, so far, in very large part, I feel that CGI is non-transportive.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, I do. I feel that way as well. Although I don't know how to explain that. I wouldn't have predicted. I mean, I'm a total pro computer, pro technology person, and all this stuff. So I
so
would have been.
my
Yeah.
simplest example is Yoda.
Yeah.
In Empire Strikes Back, Yoda is a fucking puppet,
That's
right?
right.
The hand puppet.
Yep.
And in the more recent films, he's CGI
Yeah.
most of the time. And a puppet is a real thing.
Yep.
It's not a creature exactly, right? I mean, it's still like a layer of representation, but
Yep.
it is an actual real thing. The CGI Yoda is not a real thing, and it's
Yeah.
like your brain just knows this. Um, I think that's probably part of it, and maybe they will get to the point where
Yeah.
I think in the Lord of the Rings films, in a lot of places, it did become invisible. The effects
Yeah.
did become invisible for me,
Yep.
but in large part, they're not.
Yeah.
Uh,
There were and
I can't
there were
explain why.
definitely places in Lord of the Rings where it didn't work for me either.
Where it did not work for you, but were there points where it was working for
There
you?
are, yeah, there were some.
And there are for me too.
Um,
If the
it's
entire film could have been parts that worked,
Yeah, that's right.
then
Well, I don't know. Yeah, so that's very interesting point. I'm gonna let's say for the sake of this conversation that that's probably not my main problem. I'll have to think more about that, but I'm guessing that it's not. Um, because I'm guessing that the Lord of the Rings, the version of the Lord of the Rings that doesn't have any CGI issue at all, so say you perfected it, I think still the Lord of the Rings would have failed for me because it did. I mean, so this is an interesting difference. I mean, I think it worked more for you than it did for me.
Yeah, I really like those films. Yeah.
Yeah. And can you think of other? Are there any other examples, like in the last 10 or 15 years? What other movies have there been that you think maybe should have affected? You know what I mean by should. I don't mean you're saying, like I'm just because one
Of
my almost
mainstream
because my
films?
immediate reaction when you asked the question, one of my reactions was going to be like, well, what movies are you even talking? I mean, what have they even made in the last 15 years that's as good as Raiders of the Lost Ark, or that is even trying? But I think that's a bias. That's showing a bias on my. I mean, obviously, the Harry Potter movies worked for a bunch of young people, um, or older people. I don't know. Lord of the Rings probably got to be one of the main ones, right? Like, what other things would have?
I would think so, yeah.
What other ones
Because
would
there are
have
also
given me?
very few children in the Lord of the Rings movies, I
Yeah,
should note.
except for Merry and
So,
Pippin, who they made into children some of the time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. That's true.
That's a complaint I
Um,
had.
sure, and I would prefer they not have. So, it
Yeah.
part of your complaint possibly did you actually read the books? Any of the books?
Yes. Yeah, I read them when I was young. I read The Hobbit.
I never read the books. I couldn't because Tolkien is a terrible author.
Yep. Yeah, that's a whole debate. I I understand that and agree. I've made that very same argument. Um, I think he's kind of great in a different.
In
He,
a
I
different
think
sense or a
I
different
think
way.
he's
Yeah.
I think he's very authentic. I think there's to
Oh, that's
me
interesting.
there's a sense like yep, there's a lot of I don't feel like the writing is good, but I'm able to believe that this really was coming out of that world because I think he was kind of insane. That's probably, that's 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 probably sensationalistic, but like to be able to have written the Lord of the Rings in the time that he did, I mean, that's a very interesting person. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
he really was seeped in that world that he created in a pretty deep way. Um,
Yeah.
and I sense that in there. And that's meaningful to me. That authenticity. Um,
So, actually, let me interject here a little bit
yeah,
about artists that are insane.
yeah.
Uh, okay, so actually, and before I do that, for some reason, well, I can tell you why. I also want to interject with um, a scientist who is perhaps the most sane person. So he's sort of insanely sane. Tonight I was watching. There's a newer documentary just called Hawking about Stephen Hawking.
Okay.
Um, wow, we have nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
That guy, oh my God. Anyway,
No.
so he has this sort of forced insanity that he had to deal with,
Yeah.
right? Really interesting. But
Yeah.
the insane artist I want to mention this movie called Cutie and the Boxer.
I heard of it, but haven't
You
seen it.
should see it. I think you
Okay.
should see it. And maybe I won't tell you anything else about it other
Yeah.
than it's about an artist
Okay.
and relationships.
Oh, it sounds great.
Yes. Yeah. And I I came to tears at one point during the film.
Mm.
Anyway,
Movies
see it.
can
See Cutie and the
movies.
Boxer.
Yeah. Movies and
Yeah, but
stories
more and more, it's
can.
documentaries that do that.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. That's so adult of you to say that. Uh,
It is.
yeah.
I'm so mature.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So
I want to
mature
talk.
and human.
I want to talk about Lord of the Rings a little bit more then.
Sure.
I it's a really tough one because I have so many specific complaints, and I can't tell. Um, I think those might be obscuring the issue, or that's part of the question. If all those complaints were removed, um, would that movie have given me this feeling? Would it have transported? Well, now I'm using transporting maybe in a different sense. I was going to say transporting back to my childhood or to that childhood sense. Would it have given me that childhood sense of wonder? But like, so Lord of the Rings is interesting, like, um, because if I imagine putting myself into that world, if like I guess I should go back to what I was feeling when I read The Hobbit, because it's like, what in there, what in that story do I actually wish that I was doing, or what do I enjoy? Like, do I want to go fight a dragon? I guess maybe I do. Maybe I want to be a hero or something. But it seemed good adventure stories to me. There's real hardship in there. It's like really
Yeah.
uncomfortable, right? And The Hobbit is really great about that. Like it's all about like Bilbo did not want to go on this adventure, right? He wanted to stay in his comfy little hole, and didn't the world didn't let him do that. Uh, and I would find a lot of that stuff uncomfortable. I don't want to be riding horses in the rain, trying to ford stream. Like in real life, that sounds really uncomfortable to me. Um, but obviously, I also really crave adventure uh, of that sort. Um, uh-oh, I lost him again.
No, no, you didn't lose me. I did that on purpose.
Okay, is it time to?
Just change your camera over.
Yep.
Yeah,
All
you're
right.
getting really
We lost James's
this is better.
video, so that's cool. He's still
You
here in
get to keep my.
in
That's
spirit.
right.
Yeah. Um.
I'll
So
come
yeah,
back in if it looks like.
yeah, I'm just sort of playing with this idea. I guess to me, it's more straightforward. Why I would like exploring tombs and solving puzzles and finding treasure and stuff like that. Um, it's not obvious why I would like trudging through Mirkwood and fighting spiders and um, watching, dealing with Smog the dragon and all these things, like um,
Yeah.
so, but so I'm not even sure why that moved me back. I don't know what is it about adventure that we like, you know?
What is it about adventure that we like?
I mean, what is it
Well,
about the Lord of the Rings that you like? What like so it transports you. Is it you look? Is it that this world is interesting, beautiful? Is it does this
yes.
world does this world have, does this world have qualities that our world doesn't have that you wish it had, or is that too
It,
simplistic?
maybe.
Okay.
So partly, possibly. So I can say whether it's whether we call this a sense of wonder or whether we call this I don't know what we call this, but
Yeah.
there are moments when I watch it slack jawed.
Yeah.
Um, like when Frodo confronts Shelob, right?
Mm,
I'm like, holy fucking shit! This big fucking
yeah.
spider, and it looks really dangerous and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah. So what do we call that? I'm sort of transported there. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, my
Well,
brain doesn't say, oh yes, that's a real thing.
yeah. No, I mean, it is. I think it's fair to relate it. I mean, what you just described is a bit of it's a sense of awe, right? It happens to
Yes.
be awe about it, but I think that the sense of awe is certainly tied up in what I was calling the sense of wonder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So if we can say that those are at least pretty well related, then this still happens for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean,
I
it.
get this. Yeah, I get this, but I get this in more adult ways.
Yeah.
I get this when I'm watching Black Sails, and something
What does that
horrible
mean?
happens. It's like they're dry docking a ship and it rolls onto somebody's leg and they have to take the meat cleaver and chop it
Yeah.
off at the knee. I'm like,
Okay.
oh my
Yeah.
god, so it's a sense of awe, but it's a very adult sense of awe.
Mm. Yeah. Mm.
But I can experience both maybe
Okay.
still.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Now I
See,
feel like I'm losing you.
really.
Eh, your
Yeah.
video stopped.
I see the video.
I can barely understand you now. Oh, look, I can cut my mic too.
Yeah. That'll gain some bandwidth there.
Let me try this. Okay, I've got you on audio only now, so I'm only hearing your audio.
Yeah. Take chop things off.
Eh, I still feel like I'm losing you. So, pontificate until my
Uh,
connection comes back.
uh, which is the sense of awe and wonder. Things or are there
Barely. I can't understand anything you're saying.
and
Well, I don't know. Maybe
uh,
we're going to have to be done for today.
maybe we aren't maybe
Ooh.
we're able to ask follow answers that we normally do.
Oh, your picture came back. Say something intelligent.
Yeah, I'm actually just seeing natural phenomena like the ocean,
Something about the ocean.
yeah, or the Grand Canyon,
Grand Canyon.
the stars.
The stars.
Do these things
My
give you
God, it's full of stars.
do these things give you a sense of wonder or
Oh,
awe?
fuck yes, the stars
Yeah,
do. Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, when I look up at the night skies, in here in Michigan, and it's yeah. Well, that's absolutely a sense of awe. Yes.
yep.
It's almost insanity inducing. It
Uh,
can be.
so I love that feeling, including
So go out and look at the stars.
so you first harder than you do. Uh, it's a problem. It's there, but it's like it's buried under civilization somehow. Like in my normal state of mind, I have to clear something out of my mind before I feel it. Um, it's like I
What
have
is
to.
it that you have to clear out of your mind?
I don't know. I don't know what's. I don't know, and yet at the same time, it seems cliche what I'm saying. Like um, this
So you
idea
have to
that
move. You have to move cliche out of the way before you can.
yeah, I have to view as beautiful stars, the wonder-inducing stars. clear that out before I can actually see the star, the real star.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but this is an interesting. I played Portal, in a span of like 2 days. I remember I was working hard. I was actually working on Blockhouse at the time, and I late to the party. I did in Portal both out for a while, and I got on a band. Do I still have you?
Only off and on.
Barely.
Yeah, barely.
Um, and I played Raid in 2 sessions. I think both on the same day, and then I played Portal in 1 or 2 sessions. And then I remember that after playing both of those games, I remember having strong urge to go outside and look at the stars. And I did
Huh.
that. I did that. I got that feeling really strongly. I got that crazy stargazing feeling. Very interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
it was very much time. I mean, in that I was getting that feeling already while I was playing those games. Those games were they were mind expanding in a sense. I think there's the expansion is part of I think what I'm talking about when I think about these things.
Well, so as an adult, your mind has already expanded to
Yeah,
in some sense, and so
yeah,
it must be difficult to stretch it further. And I also wonder if part of it is this, although maybe not when you're by yourself. But another thing that occurred to me when you were talking earlier about action figures
yeah,
is 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 a childhood play is so unabashedly ad lib.
yeah.
Uh,
Including rules. I was saying rules, but I mean they're very fluid. You know.
yeah, yeah. And as an adult, at least in play with others, people, there are all kinds of barriers, right? Probably
Yeah,
mostly social barriers and whatever else,
yeah.
psychological barriers that spring up. But maybe that's not the case when you are by yourself so much, right?
Mm,
Or do you? Do you
mm,
feel like embarrassed with yourself if you start just kind of,
mm.
I mean, if you when we're done here tonight, if you get out a pair of action figures and start making up stories and stuff, are you going to feel embarrassed with yourself?
No, no. I, do,
No.
I no. I never have before at the end of one of our shows when I pull out the James and Kory action figures and
Yes.
start reacting to the conversation we just had.
Dude, we need those.
I totally do. Totally do. It's so much more fun when I rewatch the shows. You know, and what? Yeah. Um. I. That's a good question. Maybe I'm answering no too quickly. But it's a lot more like I don't have the impulse to do that. Like there's something
Okay.
blocking me from doing that, or maybe I don't find that interesting enough anymore. Maybe it does seem kind of silly. I don't know. Um, but I don't think I would feel embarrassed. I don't
Right,
think.
embarrassed or well, silly is a good word for it, right?
Yeah, maybe. So maybe there is some of that. Um, but I mean, a lot of people think computer games in general are pretty silly. You know,
Right.
I don't feel embarrassed about liking computer games. I
No,
feel,
I don't either.
yeah, I'll admit I feel a little sheepish about it sometimes because I do think it's viewed in a certain way by certain parts of our society.
Sure.
But it's more like just a recognition that other people are judging it. You know.
Right.
Um,
Like if you, yeah, if you Those are always actually interesting interactions when you find out somebody has similar interests to you that are viewed that way, right? So, but at
Yeah,
first, when you're first interacting with people, you you're sort of conscious that of the fact that if you sort of let that out,
yeah,
if you lead with that, that could actually throw up these kinds of barriers between you and
yeah,
them, like, right? Yeah,
yeah. It's like yeah, totally. No,
it's
it's not.
weird. People are weird.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say it's like leading with your some interesting sexual preference that you have or something like talking about
Yeah,
talking about the equipment you use. People are like, what? Too much information. But
yeah.
I don't know. That might be a little silly. Maybe that's even insulting to people who really feel um, oppressed in some way by society. People who have whatever sexual preferences that they really do have to be careful about just talking.
True. Yeah. Well,
And so maybe
yeah,
that's
true.
maybe I don't know. I mean, video games are well, they seem to be quite accepted in mainstream society now in a lot of ways, but there's still this stigma. I feel. Um,
Yeah, because well, sure. Part of what you're saying, though, yeah, video games are more accepted in society as a whole now, but they don't call them that.
hmm.
So, right?
What do you
It,
mean?
well, I believe that. Well, so we know there are millions upon millions of Candy Crush players, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh, I see.
probably 80% of those people
Casual.
don't say that they don't lead a conversation when they're meeting new people as, "Oh yeah, I love playing video games."
Right. Yeah.
They actually do. They actually do love playing
I
video
know.
games,
It's funny.
but they don't think of it that way. They don't
Yeah.
call it
They
that.
they don't think of themselves as gamers,
They do
right?
not. And so if you say that you love video games or you say you're a gamer, you're actually meaning some flavor,
Yeah.
something else.
And
So
I
even
think
though,
that exact something else is the thing that I think people are less comfortable with. That is the people, you know, it's like a nerd thing, or like that's the thing that 14-year-old boys should like. That's something else.
yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe it is.
Well, I mean, it's apropos to this topic, right?
Exactly my
Uh,
point. Yeah.
yep, yep. Um, but it's so yeah. I like I said, I feel that sheepishness of knowing that other people judge it, but it's so random. I mean, if you really want to push that judgment, there's so many double standards there. It's like
Absolutely.
so many.
Yeah.
It's like it for the most part, it's pretty acceptable to like Lord of the Rings movies. Um,
Yep.
and that's double standard if that's okay, but liking video game like liking Prince of
Yeah.
Persia makes you a nerd or something.
Yeah. But
But
as modern societal double standards go, it's one of the maybe less
milder,
significant ones.
one of the milder
I
ones.
think so. Milder.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
That was my point. It's kind of silly to complain about being oppressed by society in
Right.
this way as a gamer. A lot of other
Right.
serious ones. Yeah, but I like that's interesting that connection of like, is this a thing? There's a reason why 14-year-old boys are one of the target demographics. All this stuff started back when I was a teenager or really earlier. You know,
Yeah.
and I feel in some ways that I haven't. I'm still grappling with. Again, I don't know exactly what it is that I was searching for or am searching for. I don't know what I want out of these things. Uh, uh, it hasn't gone away. The amount that they do it for me has decreased. Um, hmm.
And I think, yeah, I don't see any reason to believe that's unnatural at all. Of course.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's see. Yeah, I'm only
But
hearing like half of what you're saying. I
okay,
think we need to
maybe
wrap it up for today.
we should wrap it up.
Yeah,
Uh, that's yeah. I like this topic a lot.
I do too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to go back though. I need to go back and find out you what what did I ask? What will make you happy?
Mm,
Or what you
I,
think will make you happy?
yeah. Was that in? You mean in life,
Yeah.
or you mean with this? What would make me happy with art or with a particular work of
Yes.
art? Both.
Both. And how much is one a part of the other?
Yeah.
Uh, so real quick,
Those are big questions.
I know
Mm.
that's what we're here for.
That's what
We're
we
design.
do.
It isn't just called game design time.
That's the secret. Oh, do we have a puzzle?
Yeah, I want to mention what the puzzle solution was from last time. The
Mm.
question was, what is Crazy Hawk? It's not really a fair puzzle. The answer is there's this actual crazy hawk that's been coming around and like attacking our windows, and it does this
Crazy
kind of
hot.
it's crazy hawk I call him. So and he does this kind of sideways kind of dance
Uh,
movement on the deck rail,
okay.
and
Oh,
I believe he's frenemies with Phoebe now. Um,
okay.
anyway,
It's
that's what Crazy Hawk is, and I have not been able to actually get a satisfactory photo of Crazy Hawk because he just doesn't sit still long enough.
I mean, it really sounds to me like this is the reincarnation of some shaman. He doesn't
Yeah,
want to doesn't want to be
he may be
photographed.
my spirit guide. That could
Yeah,
be it.
doesn't want
Yes,
to be
my spirit is
photographed.
restless. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're onto something there. Yeah. So I'm gonna shoot it. No, anybody that
Now
knows me knows I actually could not shoot the
that's
hawk.
yeah, I know. I know. It's so much more of an adult solution though. I like it. Yeah,
That's right. That's why it springs to mind, and then
Yep.
I immediately reject it.
Yeah.
So
Art.
anyway, I don't know what the puzzle is. Oh, so the puzzle this week is well, there are two puzzles. What will make Kory happy?
Yeah.
And
And everybody you know, tweet your answers so you can
yeah, quick,
get it
quick a
get it down
minute.
to get it down to
That's right.
40 characters. 40 characters is enough.
Because the first one to get it right gets $1,
Yep.
and the second puzzle is what? The second one is a poll. Without knowing anything about the game that Kory and I are about to design, board
Yep.
game, please give us the title. There you go.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Hey, can you stay on the line for a minute afterwards?
I can try. I'm barely here, but yeah, I can
Okay.
try.
Okay. Everybody, this was Design Time, Jane and Corey, and we'll be back again next week.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.